So, what is the deal with this exploding, very troubling, very disturbing trend of loneliness? In particular with men. So, there's an epidemic of lonely males, and we've discussed this before. It's a bit of a cultural crisis that we're in, not just men, but society at large. Our culture is dying, and anytime we lose our ability to interact with each other properly and form communities, I think the culture crumbles. So we're definitely a culture in decline. Can you blame technology for that exclusively? Well, you can in part, but again, it's like Mike Rupert used to say. He said, he wrote this incredible book on 9/11. He said, people say to him, give me just one reason. Don't give me 2 reasons or 3 reasons. I just want one reason. He said, there wasn't just one reason for why 9/11 happened. So why the culture is dying, it's just technology, right? That's the reason. It's like, well, not really, because it would be the technology as well as the culture. Because if the culture were less sick, people would react to the Instagramming and the attention whoring and the Tindering and stuff the way your grandparents do when you show them that crap. They go, what is this garbage? Like, why is that important to me? Why is that worth my time? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. Because their value structures are different. So that's very important. It's very important to not take for granted the fact that the value systems go with the technology, and the demand, the tremendous and overwhelming and meteoric growth of these narcissistic feeding applications are a reflection of people's values. If they weren't a reflection of people's values, they wouldn't be successful in the marketplace, right? So, like the self-driving car thing. I just saw something on YouTube about this just exploding, all of this venture capital, billions of dollars flying around between venture capitalists and big time companies. And you got Google, and you got Lyft, and you got small startups of all kinds, and all the auto manufacturers are scrambling. Oh my God, they're scrambling to make a robot car so you don't have to drive anymore. Like, again, that would be a reflection of the values of free market. I'm a pro free market guy. I'm a libertarian. I'm a pro free market guy. But that doesn't mean that I agree with the values that people have. What you see expressed in society around you is a reflection of people's values. So people don't value adventure. People don't value rugged independence and individualism the way that Americans used to. They value safety, regularity, and security, which creates this nihilistic, decadent, so safe that you desperately need a cause. That's what social justice warriors are all about. They're such spoiled brats that they've got to go looking under rocks and inflating your corner conservative and calling him a Nazi and stuff because they just, they need a dragon to slay, like the Madness of Crowds author said, it's kind of after the dragon has been slain, they go looking for one desperately because they don't want to face the purposelessness in their lives. But why does social media cause this isolation? Because it's one thing to look at the trend and say, well, yeah, it's caused it. Like, you can look at it and you can see that there's some connection between the ubiquity of the smartphone, okay, and the popularity of social media and this meteoric rise in loneliness and isolation. But very, very few sources bother to try to explain why. And my explanation, one plausible explanation that I'd like to propose to you, is that it promotes social laziness. It's too easy. And when it becomes easy, you get this lethargic, decadence is a kind of lethargy. You say, well, you look at your Facebook and you see the 200 friends. You go, yeah, I got this. I know that. I know all these people. I know. And you can just kind of get a quick snapshot of what's going on with their lives. And sorry, I'm just adjusting the camera real quick. Sorry about the room. It's a mess. I know, but I'm probably going to move out of here pretty soon anyway and get a bigger place. So I'm not that worried about it. The easier it becomes to interact socially, the more lazy you're going to become with your social interactions. And that's probably human nature, right? So it's probably human nature to conserve energy, take the lazy way out, do what is easy, do what is expedient, and do what is comfortable. So technology has really poured fuel on the fire of this decadence, which is laziness and sloth gone overboard. There's such a thing as being too comfortable, right? Everything is kind of yin and yang. You need a balance. Is there such a thing as being too uncomfortable? Like there are people living in some African countries that are way too uncomfortable. They don't have access to clean food and water. They would if they'd let the free market work, but you've got some permanent welfare statism going on, which is very sad. But there's such a thing as being too uncomfortable. But does that mean that more comfort and more convenience is always better? Well, clearly not, because comfort and convenience to excess creates decadence, creates sloth, creates moral decay, creates kind of a meaninglessness or lifestyle decay. People need challenge. They need what is bracing. That's why you go to the gym and you work out. That's willful discomfort. You're willfully stressing your body in the hopes that your muscles will grow, and it feels good. It feels good to challenge yourself. So, interacting with other human beings face to face can be hard. There are awkward silences. There's more pressure on you to respond right away. Like if you're face to face with someone at dinner, or you get a drink with a friend or something, they ask you a question. It's an impromptu. You've got to come up with an answer right away. You can't sit and stare at it. You can't have one-way conversations with them where they just post shit at the wall. It's like I look at Facebook and it's literally nothing but posting. They should call it meme book. All people do are have these one-way conversations with people where they just advertise whatever political shit is on their minds. They just post and are cruising for likes, but there's really no dialogue. There's no depth of communication, which doesn't mean it's without value, but what is the dark side of all this? Like what ends up happening is that becomes a replacement for genuine human interaction, for depth of communication, because it's so much easier. I am willing to bet that people said the same thing and thought the same thing when the telephone was invented. Because why not? Like technology has this effect to introduce sloth and laziness in communication and therefore degrade the quality of education by sake of convenience. So what did people used to do? Well, they used to leave their doors unlocked and just sit around. They'd wait for visitors to come over. They'd create this welcoming environment because you just wanted people to stop by. You wanted your neighbors to stop by, so you always knew your neighbors. I live in an apartment complex. There must be, 500 people living here at least, and nobody knows each other's names. That's a big difference. So the telephone, probably more convenient. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's good and bad. I'm looking at the double-edged sword of technology and these things, right? So when the telephone was invented and became commonplace, now you didn't have to come over as often. Right away. Less face-to-face communication. You're no longer forced to see someone face-to-face in order to converse with them in real time. Email, that's another one. And then now you have social media. You could try this experiment with yourself right now, because all these people who are suffering from loneliness, it's not like they have zero Facebook friends, quote unquote friends. You probably have 100 or 2 Facebook friends, but you could put on there, hey, who wants to hang out, this Saturday at 2 p.m. at Starbucks and watch as everybody flakes. You can't just blame social media when the opportunities to interact in real life present themselves to people, and people shy away from it. They don't jump at the opportunity to do stuff. They shy away from it. They go, man, they'd rather not. They flake. They make up excuses, whatever, and they would rather not do it, because there is again that kind of safety. So we're geared to seek comfort, minimal effort, and safety. But of course, it's false. Like, you don't really know that person. You're not really establishing a relationship. That's why loneliness and isolation are rampant and are at epidemic levels right now, is because we mistakenly think that we are nurturing and maintaining a relationship by looking at this matrix-like false reality of interpersonal relations, and it kind of tricks our brain into thinking, I got this. I've got my social interactions handled. It's handled, when in fact it's not handled at all. It's incredibly superficial. And then what do? We shy away from the real opportunities of connection because of the discomfort avoidance. Meeting someone face to face is just kind of not comfortable, and that is why our culture is in decline, because of that decadence, because of the avoidance of. See, millennials now, I think the most recent poll is like 40% of them would like to see laws passed that restrict freedom of speech, right? So not only do they want to live in the most affluent culture and be taken care of, but now they want any word that might offend their precious little ears to be banned. Now it's not enough that you're not going to be physically hurt. They can't be emotionally hurt. So we're losing the value of rugged independence, that you have to take care of yourself. You have to, not that emotions aren't important, but that you have to take responsibility for your own emotions. If something offends you, you're not going to go encroach on that person's rights. You're just going to choose not to listen to it. I'm in many conservative circles, and I'm Jewish. So, every once in a while, some asshole says some anti-Semitic shit, and I just choose not to. I unfriend them on Facebook, or I don't. I block them on Gab. I don't want to see that shit. But I would never in a million years say, well, then I'm so high and mighty, I've got to ban that person's free speech. I mean, that would be asinine. So, what is good for you, as our conservative grandparents would say, is, the effort is good for you because you become stronger. Just like going to the gym. Motorcycling did that for me. I was very frightened of motorcycles, and every progressive step, like getting over my fear of going 20 miles an hour, then 30, then 40, then the main streets, then the freeways, I felt like I was getting stronger, like I was able to adopt the responsibility and enjoy more because I was able to mitigate my risk and increase my skill level with motorcycling. So social interaction is very much the same thing. It's awkward, it's weird, it's hard. There's a lot of trial and error. You got to find social groups that work, and relationships are very much that same way. So there is a tremendous downside to making that too easy. Too easy. Where else are you seeing this rear its ugly head? You really want to talk about the collapse of our civilization. You have to ask yourself, what is the fundamental unit? Here's a question for you. What is the fundamental, foundational unit of a civilization? You might say the individual, but you'd be wrong. The individual is the foundation of like human existence. Like, you can't have society without an individual. When you're discussing civilization, that inherently is a little bit collectivist. So it's not the government, because then you have totalitarianism, then you have socialism. So that if the family disintegrates, people will mentally replace, their mental models of the family with the government, and that's bad news. So the foundational unit of a civilization, not a human being, but a civilization, is the family. That's right. First civilizations were built on establishments of families that then became houses, clans, monarchies, and all that stuff. So turns out the conservatives were right again, that that family values, like, good old George H.W. Bush. I was not a huge fan of him, but he would always preach that family values, family values. Well, that's important because if people can't form families and people aren't reproducing and people aren't creating these nuclear families that are built around the culture collapses. So what is very, very dangerous is the hyper matrix oriented crack of online dating that ensures that females have unlimited access to optimize their hypergamy. Again, so hypergamy, quote Rollo Tomassi again, because he discusses hypergamy. He says hypergamy is just kind of female nature. So you shouldn't really fault women for being hypergamous. They are the ones who are in all mammal species, right? In most animal species, a female is looking at male display, male competition. That's that dominance hierarchy thing again, but it's also beauty. Like other animals, they posture, they show off their pretty feathers, their pretty tails, whatever, and the females choose. Okay, so however, when that was limited to the face-to-face social circles that women had, they've got to just kind of pick the best guy that's available to them, and they have to qualify based on more interpersonal depth and more limited opportunities. Now, I'm in the last generation alive that's ever going to remember life before all this shit. Some of you are born like with this stuff, with mobile phones and all this stuff. But I remember actually my generation's the last generation that will remember life before the internet. And dating was easy. So it's not really the fault of women to want to pick the best guy that they feel they possibly can, but it's also in the culture, like you find a good guy, you want to lock him down and get married and move on with your family development. So we've had this left-wing assault on all things family. And you have to see how really with this progressivism and this globalism, they've really targeted women. They've targeted the values that women are supposed to have. They're supposed to value promiscuity and the eschewing of relationship, the eschewing of marriage, and they're supposed to live these masculine lives, these very, very male-based lives, and also believe they're God's greatest gift to the universe. So there's a lot of narcissism there, and then there's kind of this phony women as victim ideas that they give women. So they're not really ever taught anything other than they're not taught anything about respect and decency for only other human beings, just that they're amazing. Everything that they do is amazing. Now look at the typical dating profile. Go on Facebook dating, and what you will see is just these profiles are just endless brag sheets. There's nothing, oftentimes there's nothing on these profiles that would indicate that this woman is trying to make herself attractive to a mate based on male tastes. Nothing. It's just, I'm sarcastic, number one. That's supposed to be attractive, and the idea is, no, it's not. They're not trying to be attractive. They're trying to dominate. They're trying to one-up you. They're letting you know they're going to spar with you and be a bitch to you. Okay, so they're saying, I'm not going to go out of my way to be attractive to you. I'm the shit. Laundry list. Look at all the places I've traveled. Travel bragging, a lot of hiking pictures. I see hiking pictures where you can't even see the girl's face. They have their friend take the picture, so it's of the girl's back, the back of the girl's head, and you see that big vista of where she hiked to, and you can't even see the girl's face. So she's not trying to, posture herself as an attractive mate at all. So what are they communicating? I'm the shit. Look at what I did. I went on a hike all by myself. I travel all by myself. I went poopy all by myself. It's just silly. So they've got a bone to pick with something, and that's what these profiles are all about. They're nothing but narcissistic boasting, as if to say, if you and I can get on the same page and we both agree that I'm the most awesome creature ever birthed, then maybe I'll give you the time of day. So again, with online dating and things like this, it's not just the technology, Because if the culture were aligned properly and you gave women the silly toy, it would fail in the marketplace. They go, what is this stupid thing? Like, I want to connect with a guy and enjoy life and want something lasting and happy and long term. This is garbage. Like, why would I want to take selfies of myself hiking all day and brag about what a narcissistic creep I am? There's no appeal. But obviously today there's appeal, because our culture has slipped into this hyperactive narcissism. And so you combine that with a culture that encourages women to be promiscuous, encourages them to leverage that hypergamy across these dating apps. So now every woman has access to an unlimited number of partners. And we're kind of culturally forgetting what depth of relationship even means. It's falling down the memory hole. That's really scary. It's really, really scary to think that not only do they not want a monogamous relationship, but that they're kind of forgetting what the appeal to that even is. I don't even know what, you say no to it for a generation or two. And the culture forgets what that even was. What did that even mean, to hold somebody's hand and walk down the street and know that that's been your boyfriend for the last 3 years? Like, what is that experience? So you can't want something that you've never experienced, so you don't know what it is. So that's George Orwell's memory hole. Are committed monogamous relationships slipping down the memory hole? I think large in part they are. And sadly, you will see other trends start to emerge that are a reflection of this, like the polyamory lifestyle, which I remember being a young man in my mid-20s, having known a few people who were into this kind of thing. It was a very, very strange kind of alternative lifestyle. It's a weird thing. Hypergamy, unless you're a billionaire guy or a rock star, benefits women. So what you're seeing is this lifestyle exploding in popularity among women, because they're saying, you know what, I'm just not going to choose. I'm never going to choose. I'm going to spin the hypergamy conveyor belt endlessly, one in, one out. I met one woman who she had a boyfriend, and a different boyfriend in maybe 7 states, because she traveled all the time. So, what an ego boost to have a bunch of guys, not just hookup guys, but guys that are professing their attachment to you, and you can just juggle. It's not the cock carousel exclusively, it's the heart carousel. No. And they'll just say, well, I'm just not going to choose. I'll just give myself the freedom to endlessly rotate the hypergamy in and out and switch up guys for the rest of my life. And so how can we have any doubt that a civilization will collapse under these conditions, unless there's some kind of, there would have to be a very powerful cultural revolution against this kind of behavior. And I don't see it really against the right. You see disagreement. You see people that don't like it. You see people who are like, this is a bit of an issue. But then you'll go on a date with a conservative girl, narcissistic, sarcastic attention whore. There's no personality difference. So-called conservative girl, it's just kind of the same kind of behavior. How often do you see profiles like this? Look at your Facebook feed. The girl, sometimes it's worse. She's God's greatest gift because look at me. I'm a Trump girl. Look at me. I'm a gun girl. I'm so hot. I'm so amazing. I'm so perfect. I'm even better. I'm even more amazing. Until we realize that there's just tremendous downsides to your character, to your quality of life, and the depth of experience that these women are going to have by being narcissists on these stupid, idiot, fake realities. These are not real realities. These are fake realities. I'm having some Howard Beale moments here. Like, we believe that social media and the internet is real life, and our own lives are the dream. Our own lives are unreal. Our own lives are mundane, drudgerous, stupid things. And we nurture the fake online relationships as if they were real, and our real lives are so boring, so devoid of anything novel or exciting or adventurous, that we dismiss that for sake of an extra follower. So a girl would rather have 100 guys hitting her up on Instagram than have a boyfriend. Back to the decadence and ease of communication thing, what you're finding is, you might think, mistakenly, like let's say you do cold approaches on women, you go and you do the PUA thing, like you try to pick up on them, and you think, well, she's going to value me more because look, I'm a real person. I'm a person in real life, and so I'm going to bypass all these yahoos, the 100 guys who hit her up this hour on her Facebook dating. But you would be wrong, because that doesn't have the veil of safety and convenience and distance that allows her to do her nitpickery from a safe distance from behind her mind control device here. So that's very, very sad and very detrimental to civilization, to see that the real world interaction, real world flirtation is seen as a detriment, is seen as a negative. So you'll see moves to ban day game, because now, hey, all we care about is safety. So if women like the ability to nitpick guys and have this constant influx of attention, ego boosting, narcissistic attention from these social media apps and dating apps, then they will probably press their political advantage to now ban, like I think it was Sweden or something, one of these backwards European countries, where they're going to ban day game. Like you can't cold approach a woman. No, it's harassment. Oh no. So now we just can't tolerate anything. We can't tolerate any risk. And is it any wonder that a culture that prizes safety as the number one thing wants to ban cars, doesn't want to deal with driving anymore? Why don't you want to drive anymore? So you can stare at your fucking phone for one more hour each day? Is it like it's that important to you? You can check Twitter 20 more times because you just can't put it down for 1 second. You don't want to feel the experience of having your hand on the wheel and being in control of your own car, your own life. You need more proof? The plummeting statistic of motorcycle sales, right? And millennials don't get bikes. Bikes are, falling by the wayside. No one's riding bikes. Why? That's the most exciting thing. It's cheap transportation. It's a lot of fun. Gets you out in the elements. It's a beautiful thing. It's team building, camaraderie building, friendship building, and all that. But the millennials don't. They'll line up outside in the freezing cold and sleep on the pavement overnight to get the latest iPhone. Totally saturated market for phones and all this shit. But motorcycles just can't sell them. Harley Davidson just can't sell them. So something, you can't delude yourself into thinking that something is not happening, something's not changing. And that's what it is. Say, well, God, Jesus, do you want to live in a world where young adults, like, safety is the first thing on their mind? Like, oh no. And that is the attitude. When I started telling people, younger people around me and stuff in my office and things, younger adults, oh, I would never do that. So they are really excited at the prospect of never driving a car, living on their phones more as if they don't do it enough, and tapping a couple buttons and having the robot car pick them up, and they don't want to lift a finger. And we're all going to suffer more from the decadence, from the ever shrinking cage of human experience. That used to really be the thing that, like, turned people on. Like, you're not going to take my independence away from me. Don't old people fight for their independence, the right to tie their own shoelaces and the right to drive their own car? I remember when my grandfather, he couldn't drive anymore, and he was devastated. He was fucking devastated. He was a car guy. So that's my mother's father. The only one I knew was alive, when I was a little kid. And he was a car guy. He owned a service station, major car guy. And when he was physically unfit to drive, he was fucking devastated. Went into a deep depression. Tell me that's not a different, not jumping for joy at a self-driving, Ponzi scheme of a Tesla electric shaver mobile. Like, he's devastated because that was his independence, his ability to control his life, his freedom. I told a friend of mine, like, his motorcycling, what I got into a year ago, and I can't imagine my life without it now. I had to get over all those fears and everything else. So, these are human experiences falling down the memory hole. Just like flirtation, dating, depth of communication, all these things, you have to trade one thing for another. But the way the e-thoughts are behaving in the matrix is becoming extremely difficult for men to form relationships. And so I'll close on this point. Facebook dating, okay, or other dating apps, Plenty of Fish, all these. Don't be fooled into believing what the women say when they say, I want a partner, long-term partner, because they don't. They are not using those applications for that. They're giving the politically correct answer. So they say no hookups. They all say no hookups. I can personally attest to the fact that that's a lie. They're down to hook up. Hooked up with plenty of girls who've had no hookups in all caps on their profile. So they're there to hook up. And that's kind of the secret life of women. Like, the cat's kind of out of the bag now, but the secret life of women is hookup culture. Shh, don't tell anybody. Don't want my office buddies to find out. And also, being a selfie snapping attention whore, they get this constant influx of reassurance of their own SMV. I'm still valuable. I still got it. I could still do it into their now 40s and 50s, and it's getting ridiculous. It's getting pretty pathetic. But while to cover their own asses, they will put on their profiles, they're on the dating site to find a decent guy, right? No, they're not qualifying guys this way. That's why they're not writing you back. They'll say hi and then you won't reply for another 3 days, because it's really just kind of this, they use these sites for ego purposes, for narcissistic purposes. When you participate in these scams, when you participate in these digital forms of dating, you are personally volunteering to be a fanboy of a female narcissist. And you are enabling this sociopathic behavior, because that's all she's using it for. And if she thinks you're hot enough, maybe you'll get a hookup out of it. It'll take an awful lot of effort, unless you're extremely exceptional looking. Like, exceptional results are for exceptional people. I'm sure that the upper echelons, the 10th percentile of good-looking men who, they lift their shirt up, they look like Hanes underwear models. I'm sure that these apps were a sexual boon to these guys. That's not most of us, and that speaks nothing to relationships. Like, not what we're talking about. So, this has been a long time coming. It didn't start with the cell phone, again, because the culture had to shift before, and it had been shifting before. It had been shifting toward what? The inflation of female ego, the feminization of men, the masculinization of women, the birth of the female egomaniac, which is what? Third wave feminism. And the resentment of the family, the resentment of motherhood, and all these things. But then along comes a spider, right? Along comes the spider and the web, the interwebs and the phone. The early days of the internet were not as bad as the mobile generation. The mobile social generation really did something very strange. It create an inability to detach from that environment. So it's more like cybernetics. It's more like a permanent attaché to your life rather than something that you put down. Like I remember the early days of the internet, there were AOL directories, and there were MySpace and things like that. But if it's landlocked to a desktop, then eventually you're going to get sick of that, and you're going to want to get up. You got to go to work, and you're forced to take breaks from it. But not so with the supercomputer in your pocket. Not so. It's more like a cybernetic implant. So it's very, very much like the Matrix. Like you can't look away from it. Even just now, I got caught like just distracted by looking at it, or like saw what time it was or something. You just can't help but check it. But because women are kind of geared toward having this reassurance of their own beauty, and there's just this unending supply of guys willing to give them that reassurance and that attention. That's what they're using these platforms for. When you realize that, you're going to stop thinking you have a chance, stop thinking that it's going to lead to dates, even on dating sites, and realize that they are not qualifying men in that way. Really the only life hack to that would be to participate in real life, to have kind of a relationship with a woman before you have a relationship, to be in the social circles where you can establish yourself, sometimes establish like leadership and dominance, and women can have optics on you in that way. That's a hack around this. It's not the rando thing, the pickup artist thing. That doesn't work, or at least it doesn't work reliably enough to make it worth your effort. And again, the digital e-thought age is actually inoculating women against that. They would much rather safety of the cell phone than have some rando approach them. But women still are very social. So if you get involved in things, get involved in activities, and you work on yourself a little bit, your demeanor, your style, physical fitness, whatever, that can help cut through some of the bullshit, but it's still very, very challenging. Like, how many girlfriends are willing to give up all of this fandom and all of this attention? Like I'm seeing the boyfriends of these women, and they get recruited to take the glamour photos of these chicks. Like, who are those photographs for? If I'm the boyfriend, it's not for me. It's for what? Your legion of fans, your legion of horny dudes. Like, it's a thing that really we have to call upon women to reject and revolt against this lifestyle. The negative aspects of this lifestyle have to be revealed to the point where there's a mass revolt against it. Much like the Second Amendment sanctuary movement, which I'm very proud of. There has to be a cultural revolution, and what I'm doing now, I'm just being a social commentator or philosopher in this space. But women still see the appeal, the outright toxicity of women living this lifestyle has to kind of wind itself out. Sadly, the novelty of it has to sometimes things move in a trajectory until the toxicity of that is revealed, until it just reaches this absolute rotten state. And it's going to take men, stop it with the attention. If men just stopped giving the attention, the women would stop doing it. But again, this is a very difficult thing for men to understand. Men don't understand this idea of selfie just to get attention and nothing else. They're just like, well, we like to get laid. We'd like to impress something on people or something, but not just to reassure ourselves that we can get, oh, I'm okay now because I got attention. I don't want to know these people. I just want the attention. This is very, very, very feminine behavior. And is it dangerous? Yeah, it's really, really dangerous. So again, I'll wrap this up. You're lonely because we've created these false systems that make it way too easy for us to fool ourselves now into thinking that we're socializing when we're not. Social networks are antisocial, but they make us think. They hijack those portions of our brains that make us think that we're being social. Just like dating sites hijack our brains and make us think that we're involved in the sexual marketplace or that we're dating when we're not. That we're reading sexual cues when we're not. Or convince women that they are fielding guys for a long-term relationship when they're really not. That's a great analogy of the Matrix, is that it's fake. Looks like the real thing. What did Neo say? Oh, I remember that place had really good noodles, but there really weren't. There were no noodles there. It's fucking fake. Okay? So here's the thing. I don't allow YouTube comments because YouTube comments, again, it's way too easy for assholes to talk a bunch of shit on YouTube. So if you want to post a comment, you have to add a comment on my website, devinstone.net. I'll post this on there in a blog post, and you can reply to that. And that's the way that I like to do business in my creative life here. Okay? Take care.